However you are and whenever you are, welcome back to Coffee and UFOs, two of my favorite things. We got a little bit of a late start, but nonetheless, we are here for the last episode of 2024. It's been a cool year, lots of changes, a lot of tweaks. For many of you who are not so familiar with Coffee and UFOs being a sister program to Mystic Lounge, I do want to share that Mystic Lounge will be discontinued indefinitely. However, we have one special guest, one last show of Mystic Lounge in early January, and that will be with our regular guest, Cheryl Costa. She wrote a novel, and we're going to discuss that novel, a espionage intrigue from her sort of imagination and perspective. So I'm really excited about that. So tune in for that. Coffee and UFOs will be the mainstay, most likely for years to come. And the reason for that is because I love this subject. I can't get away from UFOs, now UAP, extraterrestrial studies. And we have a really great guest on tonight, Ron James. He's a co-founder of MUFON TV and the director of Accidental Truth. I can't think of anyone better to discuss this with. We'll also touch on the drone subject as well, his disclosure, his documentary. It's going to be a really good episode. For all of you who are Coffee and UFO fans, if you can give a comment, a review, wherever you listen to your podcast or here on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. That would be awesome. We're growing. We continue to grow, and it's because of you. And all of your feedback and all of your support really makes a difference. So thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to just jump right into it because we're running a few minutes late. Ron, how are you, man?
Great. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So Accidental Truth, let's talk a little bit about that right off the bat, and then we'll talk about the drones as well. What was the impetus for this documentary in particular?
Well, Accidental Truth, the core of the idea came from an interview I did with Lou Elizondo, where he made a couple of revelations that he didn't really mean to make. And that was the beginning of the seed of the idea for Accidental Truth. And then as I collected more interviews and progressed in how I wanted to tell the story, more people did the same thing. And we ended up with the definition of an accidental truth is something that through statements or a collection of evidence, something is revealed that wasn't originally intended to be revealed. And so Accidental Truth came out in April of last year.
Yes.
It was in the top 10 documentaries worldwide on the Apple charts, whatever that means, for I think 20 weeks.
That's good. Yeah.
And it won 28 film festival awards. So it did pretty well. It's narrated by Matthew Modine. And I would like to tell the audience right now that we just, movies go from being something you can purchase to something you can rent to eventually they end up on like YouTube movies or Tubi. Accidental Truth is now, you can get it for free on YouTube movies. You can watch it for free on Tubi. If you still want to rent it and support us that way, you can still see it on Amazon and Apple. And we're gearing up for the next movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, take advantage and see it.
Yeah, there's going to be a part 2, I believe, right?
Yes, it's called Accidental Truth Next. And it's again narrated by Matthew Modine. It's going to come out late spring. I'm really excited about it.
Well, hopefully more and more people will see the original film. I mean, this podcast is rebroadcast on the UNX network, so you'll get more listeners there. And anybody who wants to learn about the film, where do they go real quick?
You can go to Accidental Truth with an S, accidentaltruths.com. It takes you to a page with links where you can see it for free. And there's also some ancillary content that we've been making as we document working on the next movie. So it's a fun site. It's free again. And so, I just want everybody to get a chance to see the movie because the next one is really going to be something.
Yeah, we, especially UFO geeks, appreciate the ancillary data and information and behind the scenes looks. So really appreciate that. And I'll post something on at Coffee and UFOs on Blue Sky and at Coffee and UFOs podcast on Threads as well. So let's jump into this. The accidental slips, I would say, were kind of interesting, especially Chris Mellon, right? He really
Mhm.
kind of alluded to something, and the way he stated what he seemed to know within these kind of like three large agencies was a little suspicious. So can you tell us about that moment?
Well, yeah, there's a, I wouldn't say that I was confrontational with any of the people I interviewed, but
Mhm.
I did ask Chris the hard question, and he knew it was coming. And this was an interview that happened back when these guys were doing the TV show for History Channel, Unidentified. And so my question for him was basically, Chris, we know that these legacy programs existed. We know that this stuff happened, but you're this guy who insists that he would have been read in and that you would know about it if it was true.
Mhm.
But so how do you reconcile the fact that the evidence is overwhelming and you're still saying that you don't know it to be true? Either
Yeah.
you're not telling us the truth or you're actually excluded from being read into the programs. And his answer is quite compelling, where he literally admits that crash retrieval programs did possibly exist that he couldn't get to.
Mhm.
And that narrative goes right in with what we got later from David Grush and what we got from Admiral Thomas Wilson in the Wilson Davis memo. High
Mhm.
ranking guy, couldn't get to the information. And then, of course, in Lou Elizondo's new book, Imminent, where he talks about how he met Chris and how Chris had to go and actually obtain additional clearances before Lou's people would even talk to him, which
Yeah.
I thought was very interesting. So, yeah, the Chris Mellon reveal, the Robert Bigelow reveal, which is another interesting story. I can touch on that.
Well, yeah. So yeah, share about the Robert Bigelow, because that's interesting how, um, and the connection with MUFON too. That was new for me.
Well, yeah, MUFON worked with Bigelow Aerospace in the beginning with NIDS
Mhm.
and was in partnership to supply NIDS with the inside information about our sightings.
Mhm.
And personalities got involved and things didn't quite work out. But for a while, there was this active partnership. But when Robert Bigelow was interviewed by George Knapp, and I used a clip of that in Accidental Truth, um, where George asks Bigelow point blank that he modified his facility to host materials, and did he ever get them? And Robert Bigelow said, no, I never got them. And then, George says, well, did you ever see him? And Robert Bigelow's eyes goes zooming all over the place like pinballs. And it was very compelling. But what's interesting, we've long suspected that Lockheed Martin was the place that had this stuff and
Mhm.
was supposed to give it to Bigelow Aerospace, and that at the last minute, the CIA kind of ran interference with it. But we've never been able to confirm it until the UFO hearings that just happened.
Yeah.
And this is a story that is going to blow you guys away. Melinda Leslie, a friend of mine from DC, and myself were at the hearings, and the ladies had actually met Eric Burleson the night before the hearing and had his information, and he was asking us what kind of questions he should ask. So we were sitting in the hearing room during the hearing in real time when he was questioning Lou Elizondo. And we texted him the first question that he asked about Lou, about if we were together in a skiff, could you show me compelling evidence? I can show you. There's a video out there where we actually show the text that went to Congressman Burleson. It's
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
MUFON's YouTube channel. So anyway, after that exchange all went,
Mhm.
Melinda Leslie had my other friend text him the question about Lockheed. Is it true that Lockheed Martin wanted to divest the materials? Well,
Mhm.
and the way Lou answered that question was, well, yeah, before he really realized it, I think it was another accidental truth. Um, he, unknowingly and unwittingly confirmed that it was Lockheed Martin that had the materials. And so this is huge
Oof.
because it's like this is information that we suspected, and we got as close to confirmation as we could get. And he tried to backtrack it later, but the cat's out of the bag. So
And
we
you
were
found it
sitting in
out.
the back of the room. I was joking with Lou. It's like, I even got another accidental truth out of you by going through a sitting congressman in real time.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just mind-boggling that we were able to do that. But it
Oh.
really did happen.
Oh my God, he must have been hot under the color. Stephen Bassett was there too, I think, right? For that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, because I remember him making some comment about that. Actually, Ron, can you just bring your mic volume down just a hair? It's actually just a little bit hot right now. Now, I spoke to Bob Spearing last week, and he was mentioning the upcoming MUFON conference in 2025.
Mhm.
In this past year, the symposium, they presented some metamaterial. He
Sure.
said that this coming year, there's more to come
There is.
regarding like the Russian material
Yeah.
that was submitted. Is there anything you can tease us or share with us about that's coming up?
Well, people that are familiar with the first presentation that we gave, they will know the story that we got this material sample from Russia, and our first tests that we did in MUFON's level 1 lab, which is very basic, were inconclusive, and they returned the materials to us for further analysis.
Mhm.
And that material was actually stolen right out of our mailbox. And so we went and interviewed the people that work at the post office who were able to confirm that they were familiar with the box being put in the mailbox. They have no idea how it disappeared. You would have to have gone into the post office and taken it from inside.
Mhm.
So that's a mystery in and of itself. But at the symposium, we opened up the new sample. We requested another sample from the guy in Russia. It
Mhm.
arrived to us. We opened it up live in front of the audience, and we brought everybody up to speed about where we were at that point. Right after the symposium, we gave it to a lab to take it and do further testing. And this is a lab that's not in the US.
Mhm.
And the results that they have come back with are very, very puzzling. The material, we know what it is, but the composition of this particular formulation of this material and what it would be used for and who made it, we're completely clueless.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to what you do cover in your documentary about isotopes, right? So,
Mhm.
in this material that you're talking about, are there isotopes that are non-earthly?
No, this is not a metal material,
Okay.
so it's not an isotopic ratio issue. What is strange about it is that it seems to have nanotechnology incorporated into the structure of the material, and
Mhm.
that is the material has actually turned out to be something. Did Bob tell you what it was?
No, no.
Oh, okay, maybe he's trying to keep it a secret, so I hope I don't get in trouble. But um, it turned out on initial analysis to be a material called aerogel. Aerogel is it's a super lightweight kind of foamy material that has a cost and a value more than gold by weight. It's super expensive. It's only used in aerospace applications in very limited amounts by high-end people. And it has several different things that you can do with it. So we thought, okay, problem solved. But then again, how did a guy in Russia end up with aerogel sitting in his living room?
And enough
That's
to spare 2 samples too,
yeah, for sure.
right? Yeah.
But then when they started looking at it even further, we found evidence that the aerogel structure is actually being held together by a whole other molecular atomic level uh, thing that we can't describe how or why it even is possible.
So there is a structure being held together, and you don't know why it's being held together? Like,
We
what
don't know how.
you don't know
We
how.
don't know how. We don't know how you would go about making something like this. We don't know how
I mean, with the way
any of the
yeah.
current aerogel manufacturers, you can pretty much tell that who's making this stuff. It was invented in the 20s. I suspect it's something similar to nitinol. It's like the story
Okay.
about where it
Mhm.
came from. Who knows if that's true? It's used today, but like I said, there's a few companies that manufacture it. You can buy it online,
Yeah.
but this particular composition of the aerogel and these other materials is something that we haven't been able to explain so far.
Well,
It's
just
obviously a high-tech version of aerogel, whether it came from us or came from them.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Just to reference for people listening, in case they don't know, the nitinol was that Battelle Material Labs. Is that who initially invented it, right? And then
Well, the official story is that nitinol came, and this is in Accidental Truth. We talk about this.
Mhm,
Nitinol is a memory retaining metal that bears striking similarities to the material that was described in Roswell recoveries. Is a material that you could wad up and it would retake its original shape.
mhm,
The actual material that is known today as nitinol
mhm.
um, came out of supposedly a naval weapons research laboratory in I think the 50s. Um,
So okay, so
but
it came
what
out of a naval laboratory. Okay.
Well, that's the official story, but we've been able to track that the nitinol, it's a titanium alloy. The initial research into it and probably its true origins came out
Mhm,
of Battelle Memorial Institute, which is a contractor to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base who was contracted to study materials back in the 1940s around the Roswell time. And there
mhm.
was a scientist at Battelle that pioneered titanium alloy research. And so that's where we actually believe nitinol really came from. And then we have the story about where it supposedly came from. And so
Interesting.
that,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of materials that find their way into the mainstream and with a fiction behind how they were created and where they originated.
Right. Well, where does that intersect with a downed UFO and Roswell? Meaning, why,
Nitinol?
why would the material end up in a private company versus the
Well, because
government?
Battelle Memorial Institute was under contract at the time with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to do classified materials research for the Air Force.
Mhm.
So it is perfectly logical that samples of that material would have ended up there. At the time, there wasn't very many other places it would have went,
And where's the logic then in saying it came out of a naval laboratory instead?
because that is the published story. That nitinol came from a naval weapons research laboratory in the 50s, and that's where it originated. But we know better. We know that
My question, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to understand is why is that does that act as a cover story for some reason? Like why not just say, hey, it came out of Patel, you know,
well, because then they'd have to explain where it came from.
before Patel.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like if you get, a transparent aluminum is another one
Mhm.
that, supposedly came out of some of these early legacy UFO programs. When Star Trek, the movie, the one where they came back to Earth and caught whales, when that came out and they had this whole thing about, ooh, transparent aluminum.
Mhm.
What nobody understood at the time is that transparent aluminum was a real thing. And that again supposedly was patented by Raytheon and some other
Yeah.
companies, and its history is very very sketchy. And it's another example of materials that supposedly came from one origin, but actually can be traced back to other origins. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
these programs, these legacy programs that took this material, they're notoriously good at saying, "Oh, look what we just invented."
Yeah. It kind of goes back to the whole Hollywood planting ideas thing because you do kind of wonder when you look at like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg had that biometric reader, which was not supposedly not invented yet. And yet, when you look at like what Bob Lazar described seeing in Area 51 and what we know did exist at the time, it looked exactly like what Spielberg included in his film.
Well, there's a lot of people that say Spielberg got that idea from being read into some actual
Yeah.
events.
Mhm.
So that kind of thing happens all the time.
Are you looking forward to Spielberg's next film?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that he continues the tradition of putting a large amount of truth buried into the
Yes.
story he tells. So it's going to be interesting. But I have to say, I've been a little disappointed with some of these mainstream productions that came out. The one that J.J. Abrams
Mm.
really didn't do much for the field. And what happens is in the entertainment industry, a hot topic is a hot topic. So all of a sudden you have all these, where in the past you'd have UFO investigators and UFO documentarians that work together that are passionate about it. But then all of a sudden when it becomes a hot subject, and UFOs are the hottest topic in pop culture,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden you have network executives in suits and people who say, "Hey, let's do some of that UFO thing. I hear it's hot right now," and so you end up with junk, and sometimes that's what happens. So we end up with films that are produced by people that know nothing about the field,
Mhm.
and they don't do anything for anybody.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those attempts are sincere. I'm sure that someone like JJ probably has an interest. He's very deep into science fiction, but you're right. If you're not steeped in the actual research and the history of it, then it's just kind of surface level coverage of the topic. Again, we've seen like a
Well, it was
million.
not only was it surface level, but it wasn't accurate. There was all kinds of things in there that were just incorrect, and that doesn't help us.
As inaccurate as the UAP historical report from Arrow, or
Well, that's a whole other story.
yeah. Can you explain that to me? Because it just does not make sense to me how inaccurate that was.
Well, sure, I can explain it to you perfectly. Sean Kirkpatrick, when he first rolled out as being the guy that was going to
Mhm.
run Arrow, everybody thought, "Oh, look at his scientific background. Look who this guy is." But
Yeah.
what they didn't understand is that Sean Kirkpatrick has a very, very lengthy background in high risk intelligence operations. So, in addition to being a scientist, he's also a company man,
Mhm.
and he came forward and he towed the line. We have all kinds of people that we've talked to, and we cover this in the next Accidental Truth movie, that went to Arrow and showed them exactly where they could go and find what they were looking for, and it just fell on deaf ears. And then we also have these stories about like how David Grush was supposed to go to Arrow. We have Arrow saying that David Grush never kept his appointments. We have David Grush saying that he felt threatened by Arrow and didn't want to go in. So we have and we have all these different stories. We know that Lou Elizondo went in there in a
Yeah.
classified setting and laid it out. So how they could possibly come forth with this report that
Mhm.
says basically there's just not much to see here is very disappointing.
Well,
And
Stephen,
I spoke to Kirsten Gillibrand
mhm.
personally about it, and it's going to be in the next film also.
That's fantastic. I'm really happy that we have some senior senators, along with the representatives that are really pushing this agenda.
Well,
In
she created Arrow, so it's her
Oh,
baby.
it absolutely is, and she doesn't get the coverage as much as a lot of the other Congress people, but yeah, she's definitely pushing it. Where's Rubio now? Is he kind of backed off a little bit on the subject?
I puzzle over Rubio, and here's why. He
Mhm.
was loud as could be about the whole thing. He was
Right.
very outspoken right up until that first report, when everybody got the public report, and then they all went behind closed doors. And ever since then, he's as quiet as a mouse.
Yeah.
And I kind of have this idea that it's a lot easier to get somebody to keep a secret
Hmm.
when they understand why they're keeping it a secret than it is to threaten them into keeping something a secret. So, in other words, you can tell somebody, if you reveal this, you're going to be destroyed. Or you can tell somebody, you can't reveal this, and here's why.
Yeah.
And I think that some of these guys were taken in to a skiff, and they were shown some things and told some things that made them understand why we're not being told the truth. And I think that's what happened to Marco Rubio.
It just seems like he's a little scared off a little too quickly, and why him and not others? Why not Schumer or Gillibrand?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, there are people that have carried the torch. Something happened to Rubio. I mean, there's just it's
Hmm.
almost, if you do a thought experiment on it, and you look at the facts, something inside that room behind closed doors on that day shook him up and backed him off. And who knows? It could have been, hey, we've got something on you. You really want this to come out, because they're not above using blackmail. It could have been something like that. It could have been something so shocking that he's just like, okay, I'm out of this one. You guys do the
Yeah.
best you can with it. But he went into that room, a very vocal proponent of disclosure, and he walked out of that room, hasn't said much after it.
Which actually speaks louder
It does.
to the mystery. than
And
had
I've
he
been
just
bugging him
continued
for an
on.
interview, but he would, because a lot of these guys don't want to talk to me anymore because they know that when you sit in front of my camera, you're going to get asked the tough questions because I know what to ask you.
Mhm.
And so, Accidental Truth Next uh, has some brand new interviews with some of these people, but there's also
Mhm.
some of them that have said, yeah, not this time.
Mhm. Well, let's jump really quickly into the next subject, which would be drones. I definitely don't want to miss this topic. What do you think's going on? Are are we seeing legitimate illegal drone activity, or are we just getting a lot of misidentifications, and or both?
Well, I've looked at this closely, and I just did a session today with Danny Sheehan's group um, about the drones, and I just finished a half-hour report that we put on MUFON's YouTube channel.
Hmm.
To me, this whole drone thing, okay, it's probably not non-human intelligence. It's certainly something that the government knows about. I think what we're dealing with here is a set of circumstances that have multiple explanations. And I hate to be a killjoy, but it's like 30% misidentification, 30% mass hysteria, and maybe 30% mystery, and I leave 10% out there for whatever else. But I think there's a prosaic explanation, and people just it's showing how willing people are to just go to the far extreme of what something would be.
Yeah.
Um, Without applying Occam's razor. The most likely scenario is probably going to be the truth. So we're not getting a straight answer, but it's not going to be, some earth-shattering thing.
Well, we know that some debris allegedly was sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base from the Roswell crash. It's interesting that of the bases that have been taunted by these drones, military bases, Wright-Patterson actually closed their airspace down for a while on December 13th, and they're the only one that I am aware of that actually closed the airspace down. But here near us, I'm in New York, but near us in Picatinny and New Jersey, they've had incursions as well. And then of course you have a base in England and Germany. So this doesn't sound like prosaic as in yes a drone, but it sounds like there's some kind of operation going on.
Possibly, but you also have to look at the bigger picture. Today, the big story is that China has bought all this farmland around all these military bases, and you see all these maps, and it's actually pretty
And it's
scary.
true. It's actually true. Yeah.
And that all these bases are getting drone incursions.
Hmm.
Um, the airspace over the armory was allegedly closed by the FAA through December 26th for air traffic under 1,000 feet for security reasons. So this happened before the drone stuff, and then we have a drone corridor from Delaware all the way into New Jersey that has been set aside and designated as a place to test drones by
Hmm.
anybody who needs to test them. So there, and then we've got the story about missing radiological material. We've got the stories of the mysterious orbs that seem to be accompanying the drones, which I can't explain. That's where the 10% mystery comes in,
Hmm.
because that's an interesting aspect. But we also have pictures of drones that are clearly airplanes. We have these stories of um, drones that are supposedly flying these patterns. I have yet to see a full-length video of a
Yes.
drone flying patterns, and I've
Right.
definitely yet to see a video of 6 drones all flying patterns over an area. And
Hmm.
who's this guy, this cop that says, "Oh, 50 drones came in from over the ocean." Well, you couldn't whip out your phone and catch that. What about the Coast Guard that got chased? Where's the video from that?
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, we're hearing things, and and that's where the hysteria comes in. The proof of a lot of these elements of these drone stories,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I've just heard that it's eyewitness accounts. Um, if I see 50 drones coming in from over the ocean, and I'm a law enforcement highly trained individual, You
Hmm.
damn right I'm gonna get out my phone or my camera and I'm gonna capture that. There's no reason, there's no excuse.
Yeah, I
And if
find a
you're
couple of good videos out there that look legit to me.
sure, there's a lot of videos out there, but have you seen any? There's 6 drones and they're flying a pattern.
No.
Have you seen that? No. Have you seen all of the really the orb turned into a drone? Have you seen that?
Well, I saw actually one of those videos, and I don't think it's real.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's another one that looks like the bat plane flying around that people are using, and that's already
Oh
been
gosh.
proven to be fake.
Yeah,
So
that bothers me so much because I see people like UFO researchers and other people that will post that, and I feel like they're doing it just for the views, and that's fine if you qualify it and you say I don't know what this is or I think this is fake, but some of them just post it and then people go crazy over it.
yeah, like I said, I haven't seen anything. The most extreme elements of this story, I haven't seen anything that corroborates it. Now, a couple of things that I did see that were very interesting is some flight tracking data that shows that we had a submarine hunter airplane flying a search pattern off the East Coast, just south of the Jersey area.
Hmm.
That's something that's documented. There was another airplane that was flying what appeared to be a search pattern over land, over northern New Jersey and into the east of that,
Yeah.
and that was flight data that could be verified. But yeah, until I see a series of obviously larger
Mhm.
than normal drones that are clearly not aircraft
Yeah.
um, doing what people are saying they're going to do, I'm just skeptical. And I think, MUFON gets thousands and thousands of UFO reports.
Yeah.
And out of the 128, 130,000 reports we have in our files, 97% are easily explainable. We get when SpaceX launches satellites, the phones are ringing off the hook. So uh, it pays to be skeptical, and it pays to not be attached to an outcome. I'm
Yes.
talking to very famous journalists that are just like, no, it's non-human intelligence. And I'm like, you're a journalist. You're not supposed to say those things.
Well,
And
sensationalism and journalism go hand in hand.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm literally getting into philosophical arguments with people. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say who, but let me just say he's out there and everybody knows who he is, about what these things are. And um, I'm not convinced at this point that they are anything significant to the non-human intelligence arena. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that that's not possible. I'm just saying that I haven't seen anything that really supports that where it couldn't support something else.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I'm a field investigator myself, and even recently, I stopped the car and pulled over and whipped out my camera because we saw something in the sky, and I was for a moment there, I was like, oh, am I getting a drone, charter plane, but that's okay. But I think that there is definitely that excitement that people if they capture something, they're like, oh my gosh, I've got it, I've got a drone, and you look at all these videos and it's an airplane, it's a charter plane, it's something else. I had someone recently very close was so excited and showed me this video, and they swore they got an orb, and really it was just light reflection fraction, but it was just this thing kind of moving around in the sky. But it didn't see that as he was moving his camera, it was just a refraction of the light on the house across the street. Interesting stuff, though, nonetheless. So
Well,
Narda,
it's just like that picture poor Lou put up there. That
oh
he
yes,
was, it's like,
yeah,
okay.
oh my gosh, I really felt bad for him because I do believe he is earnest and authentic in his mission. I really do.
Yeah, but let's not let you see. You hit the nail right on the head. His
Mhm,
mission, and his mission he's still working. He's still performing the
mhm.
role that he was designated to perform, whether he knows it or not.
Oh, that's
And
a good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Um,
all these guys, every single person you see coming through the military into the
yeah.
body politic, or is part of an orchestra. And this is what I believe. People will argue this point, but I think
Mhm,
that the 2017 thing was orchestrated at hidden levels. The materials that all of it didn't happen organically, and it's not happening organically now. We're being
mhm.
delivered a show, and some of the people that are helping to deliver the show, they don't even know that they're delivering a show, but in my opinion, they are.
Sure. And we can look at Rick Doty as an example of, someone who may have been being used, even though he thought he was on his own mission. He may have been being used for some ulterior motive. Real quick, Narvaez says, "Here's another eyewitness. I tried to film, but it just looked black. No light seen on my Android. What I saw was amazing." And that's another problem, is that people are trying to film these things, but they just can't capture it in the way that they see it. I get that all the time as an investigator. And even when they send in a video, you're looking at it, you're like, I'm sorry, there's just nothing here that we can really work with.
Sure.
So
Now, are you a MUFON field investigator?
Yeah, in New York.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So Dorothy Hawkins, she says, let's see. Oops, I skipped her question up here. Question. Okay. Would most experiences come with or without video experience evidence?
Well, you know what your previous person posted that we didn't ask. That's the story we hear all the time, and you hear this too, I'm sure, as an investigator. Well, I was just so caught up in the moment, I didn't think to get out my camera, or I tried to take pictures and
Sure.
it wouldn't photograph.
Mhm.
When we start to look at the broader picture and we start to realize that there's this whole consciousness element of it that nobody's talking about right now, then yeah, you can start thinking about, well, yeah, maybe I saw it with my own eyes, but it didn't show up on my phone. Maybe
Yeah.
what I saw and what my phone captured are two completely different things. Maybe my own subjective reality is creating something for me that other people would never even look up and see.
Yeah.
So, we could go into that quagmire, which we do in the new film quite deeply, but it just broadens the discussion to something that really just makes you question your whole reality.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And right to your point, Dorothy later on says, plenty of experiences throughout my long life, but no video or photo evidence. Too quick and too shocking to think ahead. And that's to your point exactly. You hear this from like Neil deGrasse Tyson, like we have billions of phones on the planet now. How are we not capturing this? And the one, you have the human behavior and reaction factors, but then two, I think you're dealing with a sentient something or other. If it is indeed, whether it's human or extraterrestrial, they clearly don't want to be seen unless they want to be seen, or at least that's how I interpret it. What about you?
Yeah, and they have a sense of humor, and they communicate in their own ways
Yeah.
with people in different ways.
Yeah.
So this is a whole other aspect of this that demands attention at this point. I remember saying after Accidental Truth came out, what was going to be next with as far as the next leap forward. And I said then, and I'm saying it even more now, experiencers are going to have their day. There's too much data that is piling up to continue to discount this. And I'll tell you, if you go up to Capitol Hill and you sit in an office with a congressperson and you start talking about legacy programs and crash retrievals and military encounters, they're with you. But as soon as you start talking about the experiencer phenomenon, their eyes glaze over. They're not ready to have that discussion yet.
Sure.
And that's what's really unfortunate about this, is that it's taken us this long. Look at how long Steve Bassett's been at it. We've all been doing this to get certain members of Congress to really be like, yeah, this is real, and to be a little indignant at being lied to. But this whole big bureaucratic machine that, like Chris and Lou talk about navigating it in the book, guys like me don't care about the bureaucratic machine. I'm going to knock on doors until somebody talks to me, and then I'm going to tell them what I know. But I don't have to nurture these relationships, and I don't have to play inside this kind of cage that these front-facing guys that are coming out of government have to be in. So I don't have to be accountable for that. But it also tends to create situations where I might get the interview, I might get the question, but I might not get invited back. And so we're all attacking it from different angles.
But yeah, I mean, if you get the interview, you got to go for it. You just have to, because if you don't get that chance again for whatever reason, it's not worth trying to play it too safe, right?
Well, at the end of the day, getting the answers and getting to the people that might be able to help,
Hmm.
that's really what it's all about. And so, yeah, I can't pick up the phone and make a phone call and get so and so to interview me
Hmm.
or to sit with me because I'm not part of that clique. We have what we call, what I've come to call, and I'm going to outline this a lot in the next movie.
Hmm.
These guys are what I refer to as men in a box. And what I mean by that is, just take a second and think about this. Say you read in one of these programs. Say you're somebody that's done reverse engineering stuff, on craft, and you know about all this stuff.
Okay.
And you've basically been told you can't tell anybody, not even your family. If you do, you could lose everything, including your pension, your literally your life. You could even end up in jail. Um, so you're trapped, and this is what your life becomes. You're this person that has to live with this knowledge and the agony of not being able to just. How many of these guys do you think want to just run and shout and say, "Yeah, right in there," and they can't?
Yeah.
And it's a horrible place to be. And Hal Puthoff talks about this in James Fox's new film, The Program. And we're kind of. I did Accidental Truth. You did The Program. I'm going to do the next one. We're kind of, what would we say?
Tag teaming.
Informally. Yeah, we're kind of hopscotching each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, not like we sat down and had that conversation. That's just how it's working out. I purposely delayed Accidental Truth next to make sure that that I wasn't making his movie, and
Sure.
so
Sure.
so that's how that happened.
Have,
But
have you seen anything with James' film or?
oh yeah, I saw it before it came out. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. What's your impression?
Um, I think there's a couple things in it that I'm not too sure about. I question Jason Sands. There's a lot of things in it that were, if you watch Accidental Truth,
Hmm.
a lot of it was just repeated, which I found a little discouraging. But it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, I had liked James. We've been friends for a long time. He was at my house the night the phenomenon came out, and so I hope the program does well, and he deserves it.
Yeah. Do you think that there is an alien abduction phenomena that they're legitimate? Because I know MUFON, you have the Star Team and people take it seriously. What about you?
There is definitely all kinds of contact with non-human intelligence that is happening to people. So alien abductions, the spiritually transformative experiences, angelic demonic encounters. I've come to ascertain that perhaps these things are all linked through what I would call the process that makes them possible. So in other words, the reasoning behind having an encounter with a demonic being, so to speak, or an encounter aboard an alien craft, or you're called, or just telepathic uh, communication.
Hmm.
The thing that makes those things work is probably related phenomenon. It all has to do with consciousness, nature, reality, how we can get
Okay.
beyond that. Um,
So there's an underlying.
there's an underlying
Oh,
similarity that
okay.
has to do with consciousness. And then, are people being nuts and bolts abducted by beings and taken onto ships and experimented with genetically, etc.? That's quite possible, because I'm one of those people who thinks that there's a lot of different non-human intelligent life forms that are aware and interacting with us, and they
Hmm.
all have a different agenda, and they're all here for a different reason. So I won't discount any of that.
Okay.
But something else to think about, Alan, and this is really cool. If you look at what happened with Chris Bledsoe,
Hmm.
he was a guy who was having these encounters with these orbs and these communications, and he was brought in to some highly classified stuff and hanging out with the A team. I mean, when you're this guy in the woods in North Carolina seeing orbs, and all of a sudden you're traveling around with Hal Puthoff and John Alexander, something's going on. And I think that there is a concerted governmental effort in some of these covert programs to find people that are having these communications experiences, because in order to interact with some of this technology, you have to have that gift. So some people are read in and brought into programs. And I also think that there's something to the whole My Labs thing, where some people are actually subjected to these experiences that could very well be part of an operation by human beings to bring
Yeah.
them in and test them.
But the thing with Chris Bledsoe, it's really gone very deep into the whole demonic thing, and I don't know. Is Chris Bledsoe on a track where what was a real phenomena has now turned into some kind of embellishment? Not that he's intentionally being deceptive, but kind of almost deluding himself.
Well, here's the thing about Chris. I've heard people say those things, and I like Chris, and him and I have had some conversations. But the thing
Mhm.
that really strikes me the most about his story is that before anybody knew who Chris Bledsoe was,
Mhm.
he was involved at the very highest levels in some of this classified stuff. These guys that are the people who know more about what's going on with these phenomena than we do brought him in with open arms, and all of them speak very highly of him. So there, what he has encountered to me has a legitimacy that you can't fake.
Mhm.
Um, and then as far as his own personal interpretation of this, it really boils down to your belief systems. And that's what we're seeing across all of there's people that say, oh, it's angels and demons, and we shouldn't mess with it. And then you have people saying, no, there's all kinds of non-human intelligence. It's all different kinds of consciousness. And I'm of the mode that we should all just get along, because it's probably all of the above. Um, and so, especially if you go back into history and you look at interactions with demons and angels, well, that's what we called them then. It could be the same thing.
So it could just be modern people interpreting this phenomena just the way people did
They're
500 years,
interpreting
200 years
it through their filters,
Yeah.
and before Chris was being visited by orbs and having these unusual encounters, he was a
Mhm.
deeply religious human being, and he still is. And so he's going to have that interpretation, and he believes that there's a spiritual element of what he's going through and what's happening and what he's seen happen, because he
Mhm.
says that there's definitely been miracles. So again, it's consciousness is subjective. So Chris's experiences and his connection to this broader non-human intelligence,
Mhm.
I believe, has been totally proven and validated by the company that he's kept over the years.
Okay.
Um, and then how he's interpreting it, and how he believes that it should be communicated to the masses. That's
Mhm.
his prerogative.
Okay. In the film Accidental Truth, what do you hope people walk away with? But what's the most important theme?
Well, at the end of the day, Accidental Truth was a story about legacy programs and materials.
Mhm.
And what I really tried to lay out is that we're being told, starting in 2017, an exact carbon copy almost of the same exact thing that was rolled out by military and politicians back in the 50s. And the mission that they have is that, yeah, we're going to have some kind of disclosure, because sooner or later we're not going to be able to keep hiding it.
Mhm.
But we have to do it in such a way that we don't have to be accountable for all the things we've done. And so Accidental Truth is there to prove that a significant part of history is being whitewashed, and to call people's attention to the fact that we're being lied to, but the disclosure that we're getting is not disclosure, and that we're not going to know the truth until we can successfully pull the band-aid off of everything from the 30s moving forward, and
Mhm.
even going back into all of recorded history. uh, you know Danny Sheehan has petitioned the Vatican numerous times to come off what they know. They have historical records of interaction with non-human intelligence going back to before we had writing.
Well, I mean,
um,
Diana Walsh has had access there, right? So what does she know? Do you think she knows more than she's already written about? Is there like an archive of mind blowing material there?
I'm not familiar with Diana Walsh. Is that her name?
I think, am I saying it wrong? Oh, she's a theologian. Gosh, what's the name of her book? I just had it in front of me.
Sorry, I'm looking it up.
No, it's okay. But she had written her book. I can't remember the name right now. I'm gonna have to look it up really quick.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we're talking about the same person, but you're talking about Diana Pasulka.
Pasulka, I'm sorry.
Yeah, her middle name is Walsh. Okay, yeah. I'm like, good. I haven't heard of that person.
Yeah.
But look, we don't know what to think from her. There's been a couple of things that she said that other people have refuted, and so I don't have an opinion. I don't know enough about her work. I haven't read her book, so I'm not going to say anything.
Gotcha.
But nobody is waltzing into the Vatican and getting all access to everything they have. Nobody. And so, and if she was, she would be able to tell us a lot of things, because we know that they've got these historical archives.
Yeah. It was American Cosmic was the book that I was talking about. It's a good read, Ron. If you get a chance,
I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah. And actually, that's a really good question I have for you. Then, what is a really necessary book to read if you are interested in ufology? A book that you would recommend?
I get asked that question all the time. And when I made Accidental Truth, I tried to make that movie that in 90 minutes you could get a feel for the whole topic. So some people were annoyed because there was information they already knew, and some people were thankful that it laid it out for them. But Richard Dolan's books, UFOs and the National Security State series, absolute must reads. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. Okay. Last thoughts, Ron. What would you leave us with? What regarding all of your research, the topic? Like, what's the most important thing you can think of?
Gosh, there's so much. At the end of the day, so the most important thing, and I'm struggling with this for just a second, but I know what I want to say.
Okay.
The UFO UAP question is only scratching the surface of the questions we should be asking. And it's quite possible that things like crop circles, things like these things appearing in our sky, things like the experiencer phenomenon, if we're living in a simulated reality, which I'm totally convinced we are, I'll explain more about that in the film. But just by the very definition of how the universe works, it is a simulation. It is a program, energy-based manifestation of physical matter. So all of these things are really not anything more than part of a program. So when we're saying, are they coming from Mars? Are they time travelers? Are they this? Are they that? The answer is probably all of the above and none of the above at the same time. The question that we should be asking is, what is this set phenomena here to show us about our own existence and the nature of the reality that we're in and our true essence of who and what we are? Yes. That's the question. So, debating about the different types of aliens and blah, 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 that's all part of the program inside the game. But what if they're really here to call attention to the fact that this is a game?
Well, and Ron, like you're totally on board 1,000%. So I've been thinking about this for a while.
Sure.
My thought is, what if disclosure is actually pulling that thread, and that the government's so afraid of disclosure that because then we'll end up pulling that thread to find out that we are in some kind of simulation. And that is just that to me is almost justifiable. Almost. I can understand because people would panic and freak out. But then at the same time, if you are religious and you believe in a creator, then that creator created this reality, which is not that dissimilar from the idea of a simulation.
Well, look, here's the thing. All of our religions, pretty much every one, even going into Native American traditions, say that this reality is an illusion and allude to the idea that we are spiritual creatures having a human experience. So the idea that we're living in an illusion, there's nothing new about that. It's been taught to us since we were able to learn. The idea that okay, so that's all true, but then there has to be a mechanism by which this works.
Hmm.
And we have energetics, we have mathematics, we have we have all of these elements that we're even beginning with our own computing power to be able to create convincing artificial realities.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it stands to reason. People, they resist the idea because when you say, oh, we're in a simulation, they immediately picture a bunch of people jacked into the matrix like in the film. I'm sure that's not how it is, at least on some level. But yeah, that's really where it's all at. And there are people in this simulation that have a pretty good thing, controlling and running others, and taking all the resources and enslaving their fellow souls and their fellow humans. So there is I'm sure, a high motivation to keep the illusion going, because the people that have the power to give us this knowledge are also the people that are benefiting the most from us not having it.
I have to say, Jess Rogue, the host of Escape the Simulation. Hey, Jess. She just commented,
Hey,
exclamation, simulation. She's standing by it.
hey,
Ron,
ask her to reach out to me. I'd like to interview
yeah,
her for the film. There's some very interesting characters that are coming forth in Accidental Truth next.
oh, cool.
And in the first movie, we went through the nuts and bolts of the political processes, and we went through
Mhm.
the nuts and bolts of materials, studies, and programs. And then we started touching on Gary Nolan's discoveries about the basal ganglia and its ability to interact
Yes,
with
yes, yes,
things
yes.
that we can't see. So the whole thing just took a right turn and went whew. In Accidental Truth next, we're doing that on steroids.
That's awesome. I'm very excited about that.
You're gonna start off wanting to see a new UFO documentary, and you're gonna walk away shaking your head, maybe for weeks.
But I've interviewed Gary and I've spoken to him, off the record, and he goes in that direction. He is drawn to that. It's like he is sensing something. His scientific, eye is drawn to it. And
Yeah,
I hope that's a thread that we do get to pull and find out. Ron, thank you so much for being on tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Um,
thanks.
one last time, everyone, if you want to check out an accidental truth, it is on Tubi. I watched it on Roku myself. It's on multiple platforms, so please go check it out. And yeah, Ron is a part of MUFON. It's something that I'm proud to be a part of as well. So if you are interested in MUFON, go to MUFON.com and check out everything it does.
Hey, it's still the best, oldest, and largest organization studying the topic. There's a lot of people trying to suck up UFO reports right now, which is very discouraging, because we have this database
Yeah.
that we share with the world. And now there's private companies out there advertising, report your UFO to us. Well, they're taking that data, they're hoarding it, and they're monetizing it. And they're making it really hard for us to maintain a quality database, because now the data is getting diluted. So when you're trying to figure out where to report a UFO, it's no enigma. Call MUFON.
MUFON. And MUFON's got boots on the ground. And
We've got boots on the
big
ground.
distinction. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Ron. And I'm sure I won't see you. So happy New Year's and happy holidays to you and yours, brother.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is the last episode of the year. So happy holidays to you and yours, and have a happy, wonderful new year. I'll see you in 2025. As a friendly reminder, this podcast, Coffee and UFOs, streams on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mystic Lounge, and is a rebroadcast on the UnX network, Thursdays, 11 p.m. Pacific time, Friday mornings, 2 a.m. Eastern time. Until next time, everyone, thank you again for all of your comments and all of your support. I really appreciate it. If you can go out there, rate, comment wherever you listen to podcasts, or right here on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, peace and love all, and I'll see you on the flip side.
It's good to be an earthling. I wish more of us would think of ourselves that way.
I don't have a problem with skeptics. It's debunkers that are on some other level that I don't understand.
essentially an inference of a change in local gravity.
Saucer-shaped craft, and they're hovering over the water.
Blue Book Special Report 14, the better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be unexplainable.